Walk us through, there's a big event coming up, 40 years, and Te Atiawa is hosting.
I suppose it was, we had an idea because of the passing of our Uncle Kara Puketapu, or the late Iha Kara Puketapu, last year. And we wanted to do something to honour him, and just knowing that this is the 40th year since Te Māori. We thought, well, let's do something on the 10th of September. It's a special day for us. It was the day that Te Māori was opened 40 years ago, but it was also the anniversary of the day our meeting house was opened in 1960. Our kohanga reo was opened on the 10th of September. A lot of the buildings on our land were all opened on the 10th of September, so it's a significant day for us, and it's about just celebrating us. There have been a lot of discussions over the year about will there be a Te Māori too, or what's going to happen for the 40th celebration. So we thought, let's do something local, and we're going to celebrate Te Māori. And I suppose those that are still on the trust, there are two members, Gary Nicholson and Arapata Hakiwai. They were thinking along the same lines, and then just through a random discussion, as you do, you have these wānanga just over a cup of coffee, and next minute you start talking, the next minute it's taking a formation of its own. From out of that, there was a number of meetings, I suppose, behind the scenes, and they were connecting with those that were part and parcel of the whole Te Māori exhibition. And I was fortunate to be invited onto one of those meetings, and just humbling to listen to some of the stories of those who participated in Te Māori at a very young age, who are, I would say, the kaumātua generation today. And so I've been humbled by listening to their stories, what the memories they have of the kaumātua back then, what it meant for them. And I hope that with us hosting there, that we may get the opportunity to hear some of those stories.
Talk to us about the significance of the role of, your uncle and your kaumātua, because while it's 40 years ago that Te Māori actually left Aotearoa for the world, there were those years prior to where all of the hui and all of the kōrero went on to arrange it. You tell us about those conversations. It would have been Kura Moeahu at the time. You would have been Minister for Māori Development.
Definitely, and there was a lot of, at the time, Bob Muldoon was the Prime Minister. There was a lot happening in Māoridom. When we look at the Hikoi, Bastion Point, there were a whole lot of things that were leading up about kohanga reo, and then the number of meetings that they had, and there was one significant meeting that took place here about the future well-being of Māoridom. And Uncle, who was the Secretary of Māori Affairs at the time and had a really, really good relationship with Kura Moeahu and with the government of the time, when they invited all the kaumātua to come to a meeting to look at the future well-being of iwi Māori. And there were a lot of concepts that came out of not only that meeting, but meetings leading up to that meeting, afterwards. And just to name some of them, there was the idea of establishing a kohanga reo movement. Puao Te Atatu was born out of that, and which is a strong documentation that I believe hasn't been given the full benefit and support, because it works. Then we had the Tū Tangata program, which was being driven by Te Puni Māori Affairs at the time. The Matua Whāngai program, that was where we had our own people in the courts supporting our own people going through the system. And the Tū Tangata program in schools, where children were struggling in a Pākehā system, and so where parents would go in and support. So there was a lot of activity that was born out of these ideas and concepts by these amazing people. There were a lot of people that should be acknowledged. Uncle Kara, he had a lot of respect for the kaumātua and kuia, and he always used to talk about the old people a lot. And whenever he would hold a meeting, he would call the old people. He never had a board, and he relied on his eyes and ears of those old people in their communities who had influence. And he believed in the grassroots, taking it back to the grassroots. So although he did play a pivotal role, he had some amazing people working with him in Māori affairs. They were able to work within those communities who had those relationships with their kaumātua and kuia.
So one of the ideas that came from, that time of the Think Big, and it seems like there were a lot of Think Big ideas that were popping up, which were Māori designed for Māori, or possibly the first by Māori for Māori kaupapa that happened. Te Māori was one of those. Yeah. What was it for those who can't remember 40 years ago?
I remember watching the Te Māori performance on TV, and I was only still at college, but it captured me. It captured me because all we knew about Māori was on Te Karere, which was only about a minute or 2 minutes at that time, and so that was our news. But something of this coverage, it really, I don't know, it resonated. If it resonated with me, could just imagine how much it resonated with other people who were just so, wooed by it. I suppose one of the opportunities that we never had, our generation, we missed out on the kōhanga reo generation, and so they're so fortunate. And I suppose we were on the back end of the colonial system and still going through that system. So having something like Te Karere, you think, wow, we're watching that 2 minutes, wow, we're on TV. Then you have an hour show, you go, wow, and the performances, I remember the performance by Rangi Wewehi that was on the show. There was Wakahuia, there was Te Rōpū Manataki, and then there was Tamate Arikinui and other artists as well. And I still remember that song, Haere Mai, E Ngā Iwi Haere Mai, and then the Pakipaki School, Te Tangia Takuihu. So it resonated with me. I can only imagine what it resonated with other people my age, younger or even older. Te Māori really put us on the international stage. And when I look back, what has Te Māori done, I think you just need to look at the arts today. It's allowed the expression of our artists to express themselves in whatever form, shape or manner. As a carver, as a weaver, as a clay, someone who works with clay, performing arts, taiaha, and the list goes on. When I look back 40 years, what has Te Māori done? When you look at the excellence of the arts, it's created Toi Māori. When you look at the excellence of kapahaka, Te Matatini. When you look at the excellence of rākau, Te Whare Tūtaua o Aotearoa, and other, and also Mita Mohi on Mokoia Island. So the arts, Te Māori brought all this reinvigorated, reawoken, all the arts that had just been hiding away quietly.
Where did the taonga come from?
In storage in museums throughout the world, and particularly, and there were some taonga that were in storage over in America, and it was about putting those taonga on the international stage. And so a lot of them came from overseas. For us, it was the first time that a lot of them would have been brought out into the public. The opportunity, when you talk about Te Māori te hokinga mai, it was about the opportunity for them to come home and be shown. And I know my sister was one of the ushers, and she remembers working with the taonga. And as I was talking to her about it, she says, I remember so-and-so, I remember auntie and uncle, and she remembers the narrative that she was given. So it was a huge opportunity, not only just for our taonga to come home, but an opportunity for us to be educated about these taonga. And then from the taonga returning home, you had amazing researchers and scholars starting to write about these taonga. I mean, Tāhirini Mead wrote an amazing book about Te Māori and the taonga that were in it. And so when you have people like that are starting to collate all this knowledge, and capture that knowledge, it allows for new knowledge to be formed. And so that's what excites me, that Te Māori has Te Māori returned home to enable new knowledge to be evolved from out of the taonga, from ancient knowledge, and it continues to create new knowledge. So that's what Te Māori has done.
One of the aspects of an exhibition that great and hohonu is that often taonga have mauri or wairua, and they have to be treated in a particular way. And you talked earlier about those tohunga who got together and travelled and were the kaitiaki, if you like, of them.
Yeah. I'm going to share an experience when we went in Hawaii in 2012. We're over there with the kingitanga, the kingi tūheitia, Uncle Kara, Neville Baker, who was played a role in Te Māori, and also Sir Toby Curtis. And we went to the Bishop Museum, and Sir Toby Curtis was talking about the specific taonga that he had, and he had a photo, and he showed us. He said, it's in Hawaii somewhere. We walked into the Bishop Museum, and there it was, sitting in the Bishop Museum, and that ultimate connection that he made to that specific taonga. He started crying, started having a tangi to the taonga, started to do the karakia to the taonga, to mihi to the taonga. And I suppose that's the relationship, as those that move in that world have that amazing connection, and they all have their own mauri. And that really resonated with me, because he had this photo, and he said he hadn't seen it when he was a child, but he knew it was somewhere over in Hawaii, and he was hoping that he'd have the opportunity to meet this taonga. Well, it was one of those moments that's never going to repeat itself again, and it was really resonated and really touching. Now that was just one taonga. If we go and put into perspective with the Te Māori, you could only imagine the tears, the karanga, the kōrero, when these the kaumātua and kuia of the time travelled overseas to connect and to meet these taonga that they knew. And so when we look at the morning on the 10th of September in 1984, at that particular opening, you could only imagine what was going through their minds. And I remember watching a couple of footages as they arrived in New York. They were met at the airport. They all boarded a bus, and some of the comments that they were making, oh, here I am, there's someone from out of the Wop Wops here in the Big Apple, you know. And you could only imagine that when they, what was their wānanga like in preparing to meet these tupua, these taonga. You know, there would have been a lot of discussion amongst themselves and wānanga when they came down the main street of New York, ready to meet these amazing taonga. And on the photos, the videos, and the recordings that we've been fortunate to see, you could only imagine when you're hearing karanga, you can, or karakia as they walked in, and then you have the rākau leading them in. One could only imagine what it was like when they walked in. You could imagine, yes, there would have been a lot of tangi, not seeing these taonga or seeing these taonga for the very first time. And for some, knowing the narratives and the stories. And I think that was a really, really pivotal point in terms of showing Te Māori to the world, was that one shot as they were coming down the main street of New York, or a street in New York, doing the karakia, and as they're going up to the steps of the New York Museum, and the photos that have been captured. And it was a very powerful photo when you're seeing tohunga, whose names are still uttered today, and are highly respected. of that ilk leading their age group. From what I understand, you had to be 70 or under to be part of that group, so it would have just been amazing hearing the narratives and the karakia that goes with it. And they would have been talking to those taonga as they were going through. Te Māori, that particular shot as they walked in has done a lot for the survival and revival of our karakia tūturu. And had it not been for that one incident, I think we may have been in a different position still trying to research our karakia tūturu. Today, we now celebrate matariki, puanga, and you're seeing those old karakia prior to Christianity coming out in its beauty. So for me, that is one point, a turning point in the survival of what was nearly lost to the world.
Do you mean that had it not been captured for the purpose of Te Māori, we may have lost that particular type of karakia?
That's my own personal belief. I believe it was a real pivoting point because I do have a passion for karakia tūturu. And for me, when I saw that as a young boy, it just really resonated, woke something up in me. And still on that journey. And when you see the beauty of it today, you're watching karakia, different iwi doing karakia. When we celebrated Matariki, we had the opportunity to stand alongside Te Matapunenga as we celebrated, then at going to Rotorua, then now down to Tautahi, and we're hearing the karakia tūturu from the various different iwi. Beautiful.
In terms of the taonga that was on display for Te Māori, do we know where they all are? Are they still in museums? Did some come home?
I do know that there is one in the Rotorua District City Council that did come home pukaki. I don't know how many were returned home, but I know that some returned back to where they came from. And the other day I was watching the Poroporoaki of Te Māori, and the presenter was Hone Ka, and he did talk about that. You will never see another opportunity like this to see all these taonga in one place ever again. Well, I don't think I ever see that in my time, but who knows? I'd like to think that with the work that Te Papa's been doing and their relationships with other museums and about the repatriation of taonga, I'd like to think that some of them are coming home. And Te Papa has done a lot of work for the repatriations of moko mokai to come home. They'd be sitting in a cold storehouse by themselves.
Has Te Māori been an example, he tauira for Te Papa and the Auckland War Memorial Museum?
I think Te Māori's been an example not only just for Aotearoa, but for the world in terms of repatriation of taonga. So I think there's a real classic, that's a real classic example of Māori leading the way about the repatriation of taonga, not just moko mokai, but taonga that have been over there for a very long time. And we're very fortunate to be led by Tā Poutemara as the chair of Karanga Aotearoa, when you have experts like Tā Derek Ladeli on the board, Hami Piripi, Kiwa Hammond, Hinerangi Himiona, and Media Pōmare is in safe hands with Media Pōmare. Her father played a pivotal role for the repatriation of taonga. So I believe Te Māori was an example for the nation, not only just the nation, but the world, to say it's time to come home.
And with those karakia that you talked about nearly being lost, but also now having been learnt by generations, is that is it because we have that ability to keep ourselves safe that people like Media Pōmare can hold her meripaunamu? Because families are now taking their taonga home.
Yeah, and each family will have their own whānau karakia, whether it's a meripaunamu, a korowai, or just a little hei tiki, And that's important because there's that intergenerational whakapapa connection that's been handed down from their ancestors, but also it resonates because there's a wairua, there's a Māori of itself, of its own, that resonates with a particular family. And each Māori is unique, each Māori is special, and it's like that collective journey of those decisions to make some very, very bold decisions by our kaumātua and queer generation, making some bold decisions to say, we need a kohanga reo, we need Te Māori, we need Puaho Te Atatu, we need Tū Tangata, all those programs, making courageous and bold decisions that have had a huge impact on us today.
What are you expecting come 10th of September here?
I think there'll be a mixed emotions, beautiful emotions. I think the acknowledgement of the taonga, but the acknowledgement of those that have gone. And the sacrifice, and I wouldn't like to say the struggle, I'd say the continued fight. You know, we've just had a wonderful movie, Ka whawhai tonu mātua ake ake tonu. We're still fighting, and because they carry the legacy, we must play an important and continued role to carry that legacy on. We're being challenged in the current government. They've done us a favour. They've brought te kotahitanga. When you start dealing with taonga, i.e. te tiritio waitangi, tō tātou reo, tō tātou mokopuna, you're now dealing with our taonga, and the need for the uniting and te kotahitanga is strong. It's strong based on who we are, our pride, our aroha for who we are, and that they don't know what they've actually reawoken. They've woken a tupua of kotahitanga, of aroha, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. All I say, don't get scared of us. Come join us. Come and feel this magic that we've always known. It is our superpower, and we're now exercising our superpower.
Tēnā koe e kara.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Kura.